Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and start the show here. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for attending. Just a couple of minor housekeeping things. If you want to go ahead and stay muted during the actual presentation, that'll keep extraneous noises out of the presentations. And then we'd also like you to put your questions in the chat. So she's got a lot of pictures to cover, and so she really wants to save time for a question and answer session at the end. So we'll try to get to everybody's questions, but put them in the chat so you don't forget what you're going to ask. Okay, well, I'm going to, do you go by Cindy or Cynthia?
Cindy.
Cindy, okay. This is Cindy Kern from Cardinal Farms, and she's going to start the show and introduce herself. Go ahead. It's all yours, Cynthia.
Right. Hi, everybody. Like Pam said, thank you so much for joining tonight. I know that the original request to speak was from the South Lyon Garden Club. So let's wait and we're going to do a little poll about who's here, but let's wait a couple minutes and see if a few more people come on. So I know some of you are probably from the garden club, but then I know probably from some other places. So we'll do a poll in a second to just see where everybody is coming in from. So I'm super excited to be sharing with you tonight about our farm and our commitment to local food. And yeah, I'm got lots of pictures to show you. And so I'm gonna share about who we are, how we got here, how we got into farming, especially at the mature ages that we are, and then where we're at and where we're going. But I want to leave a lot of time for questions, whether it's about us, Cardinal Farms, whether it's about local food, whether it's about gardening or farming in general. I certainly, this is only our second year of production, so, but I could probably tell you a lot about what not to do. Made a lot of mistakes already. So, but I'm happy to share whatever it is we know. And I'm going to share some resources along the way too, because for me, that's been a huge part of this journey, has been the connection to other farmers and other people who are also in this area, and learning from them. So, which is, you know, a lifelong endeavor. So, well, why don't we go ahead and do the poll before we start sharing the screen? I just kind of wanted to see where everybody's from. So Pam's going to bring up a poll and just answer which one of these best describes you. Oh, you're muted, Pam. Oh, here we go. So which answer best describes you? Are you a longtime gardener, new to gardening, not a gardener, but interested in eating local and or organic, or you just want to learn more about Cardinal Farms? I feel like we need the Jeopardy music.
Go ahead and get started, Cynthia, because
Okay.
Marge has to reset the poll. So
I don't have to reset it. I just have to end it when everyone. Oh, okay. Nope, this is good. So 5 people are longtime gardeners. We got 1 who's new to gardening, a couple who are not gardeners, but interested in eating locally and organic, and 1 who just wants to learn more about Cardinal Farms. So, okay, that's good. That helps me just know, you know, what it is to kind of focus on. So thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see that picture of Rich and I? Okay, awesome. So let me just bring up the chat in case there's anything over here. All right. All right. Well, so this is my husband, Rich, and I'm Cindy Kern, and my husband is Rich Kern, and we're the co-owners and founders of Cardinal Farms. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our journey to becoming farmers, because that's not our background. Rich was actually in banking for about 30 years, and he retired in 2019. So he just turned 61. And I have been in a number of different fields. My original degrees in broadcasting, and then I was in insurance for many years, and then in ministry. I have a master's degree from a seminary, and then into farming. So yeah, and we just this is just a new adventure for us. We bought this farm in 2019. So the way that we let me just so this is Rich, and most of his pictures are going to be with goats because he loves our goats. He is a huge goat fan, and as long as we have the farm, we'll have goats because they are his favorite. And like I said, he was in banking, so this is in a suburbanite, so this is a totally new endeavor for him, but he absolutely loves it. So the way we got started in farming, we got married in 2010, and we moved to Northville, and I was looking for work in ministry after graduating from seminary, and Rich was still working in banking. And I decided to volunteer in the community. And I started volunteering at Mayberry Farm, which is in Northville. And this is it's a community farm. It's owned by a nonprofit, and it has a mission of education. And through volunteering there, I ended up becoming the director. And I loved that work. I found that it really resonated with me, both from the development of the farm and the organization, and also the education, being able to develop programming for children. I've always been a teacher at heart, but not in a formal setting. So we were there, and then Rich was doing a ton of volunteering there. And so this is the educational garden that we developed while we were there. The garden hadn't been planted in over 3 years. So we replanted the garden, and then we developed a whole children's educational section. This was our first exposure to farming. So we were doing Mayberry is 40 acres, so we baled our own hay, which is an adventure if you've ever done that. And we had over 100 animals. So even though I had grown up in rural Michigan, I didn't have a lot of exposure to animals or to farming. So this was a huge learning curve. And this is one of the many animals that we had in our house in Northville as we started doing breeding. They hadn't done much breeding at the farm in years. And so we started breeding again. And that meant animals that didn't always do well and needed a place to stay. So we had to sneak them into downtown Northville in our house and let them stay there. So we also started breeding pigs. And so it was a little bit of trial by fire, but and Rich was volunteering there too. And what we found though was that we absolutely loved it. We loved working together. We loved being outdoors. One thing we did, I don't know, I wouldn't say we loved it, but we planted and cut a 10-acre corn maze, which is an experience that we had and probably hope to never have again. It was a ton of work. And we said, now our marriage can survive anything because we lived through that experience. But we really fell in love with it. And unfortunately, after a few years, what we found was that we had a parting of the ways with the nonprofit that it was run by, and we were overworked. I was working about 80 hours a week. And our priorities were really getting out of whack. And so we ended up, we had a falling out with the nonprofit. We left there. And so that was in October of 2018. And at the time it seemed kind of devastating that we left behind so many people that we loved, and all that we had developed there. But as we processed that, we realized that we wanted farming to be part of our future. And so we started looking for a farm, and we wanted to stay close to Northville. We had a few other things that I'll talk about that we wanted to be sure were part of our decision when we started farming. We wanted to be able to set our own values and priorities. So we wanted to be the owners of the farm. We wanted to farm at home. Mayberry had been about 10 minutes away from our house, so we were constantly running back and forth. And we wanted to have a connection with the community. That's something that we loved about our work at Mayberry, and we wanted to be sure that wherever we moved to, we had that same connection. So we started looking around, and eventually we found this property here in South Lyon. So we're at the corner of Pontiac Trail and 8 Mile, right off Walgene Road, which is a private road. And this was a horse farm for about 23 years called Mystic Meadows. So you could, put a hey in the chat if you know Mystic Meadows, because many people came out here over the years to do horseback lessons and training. And so when we found this, John knows it. And so when we found this, we really loved it because, and I'll explain some of those reasons why as we go through. But it was a great fit for us. And so we purchased it in 2019 and started converting it to livestock and crops. We decided to name our farm Cardinal Farms. This is a couple of pictures. One of the reasons we loved it was the infrastructure. It had a big barn already where they had horses and an indoor riding arena, and also a second barn in the back that was used for hay storage, and that allowed us to we're going to build that out for our vegetable wash and pack, which I'll talk about later. And it had pastures as well as some wooded areas, which are great when you have livestock to have both of those. So it had a lot of the things we were looking for. And we named our farm Cardinal Farms. Cardinals have always been special to Rich and I. And so that was and we didn't want anything that was going to tie us to a certain type of farming, because we didn't really know exactly what we wanted to do yet. And our tagline is "Your Farmer for Life." And the reason we chose that is because we want to be a partner to people. So just like you have a doctor that you really trust, a vet that you trust, a trainer perhaps that you trust, or, we want to be someone that you can trust with your food. And it's funny how important food and nutrition is to us, but we buy our food so often blindly. We have no idea where it came from or how it was grown. And I think we're in a time when people are really starting to understand that some knowledge about that is super important. And so we want to be your farmer for life, your partner, and also for life, so that the food that we provide is sustainable to the land and healthy and nutritious to the people who eat it. So we felt like that encapsulated a lot of our values and our mission. So that's our tagline. So once we bought the farm, we knew that these are some of our values right here. This is our two of our three grandsons. And so when we were working so much, we really lost a lot of contact, being able to spend time with them. And so now one of our priorities is making sure that we have time to spend with our family, and our priorities are faith, family, and then the farm. And so we really work to constantly be looking at that and saying, are these priorities in line? Because now we're the owners, so we get to choose decide that. And like any other career, it's really easy to let those things get out of whack. So we're constantly working to make sure that our priorities are in line. So, and then this is our mission statement. And so stewardship is a big part of our mission statement, that we are stewards of everything that we have and trying to impact our community. So once we bought the farm, we realized that we needed to learn how to do farming more so than we already knew. So I enrolled in 2019 in the MSU Organic Farmer Training Program. It's an excellent program and very affordable. You're required to go to Lansing 1 day a week on Mondays from 9 to 5. And then there's a fair amount of at-home work. But you are doing hands-on work at the student organic farm there in Lansing, as well as touring over 30 different farms in Michigan, all throughout Michigan. And so this class really gave me exposure to a lot of different types of farming, including the type of farming we wanted to do, which I'll talk about, and to give me some hands-on experience. And I think it really made the idea of farming attainable. That this was something that I could do when I saw so many different people doing it in so many different ways. So I took this class all throughout 2019. I also worked at 2 other farms. This is another thing, if you want to get into farming, work at other farms. Most farms can't wait to have somebody help them, especially if you're a hard worker. So I worked at a flower farm and I worked at a local vegetable farm, and in 2019, which gave me a lot more exposure as well. And I went to tons of other farms and seminars and trainings, and we still do that. MSU offers wonderful free or very inexpensive webinars and trainings that we use for the livestock and for the farm or gardening for the crops. So lots and lots of opportunities there. I also do a ton of reading, and I'm happy to share. I have some resources I can share later that if anybody's interested, let me know, and I can share some favorite books that I've read that have helped me a lot, in magazines. So, and that's an ongoing thing, but that was really important as we started to have a foundation so that we're not recreating the wheel is in regards to how we're developing the farm. We wanted to really learn from others. So our farm has 3 components: land, livestock, and learning. So those are our 3 tenets that we have built the farm on. So I'm just going to kind of go over those and talk a little bit about what's involved in each. So livestock. We knew we wanted to raise livestock, and one of our goals, one of the things I found, and maybe you have found this too if you're in the farming world, is that farmers are not very good at restraint. So there's lots of different things to plant and lots of different animals to have and lots of different cool tools to buy. And so we are trying to walk that line between restraint, but also the fact that we're older. I'm 49 and Rich is 61, like I said. So, we don't have a dozen years to kind of, go super slow. So we wanted to kind of jump into some things and find out what it is that we want to really focus our resources, our time, and our energy on. So one of the first things we purchased was laying hens, and we got them through the mail. So we have right now we have about 50 laying hens. And so we start them in our basement. This is Zuzu, our farm dog. You'll see her everywhere. And then we take them out. And I'll show you a little bit about how we use them in our farming, in our integrated farming approach. And then we also raise goats. Like I said, Rich is a huge goat lover. And so we picked 2 types of goats to raise. The first is Mini Nubian, and Mini Nubian is a super popular breed in Michigan for homesteaders because it's a dairy breed that allows you, they're very easy to handle, but they have a very good, they produce a lot of milk for their size. They're easy to hand milk, and they're pretty friendly. They also birth really easily. So we raise purebred mini Nubians, and so this is Rich with one of our kids born at the farm the first year, and this is some of the original stock that we bought to get started with our flock or herd. And this is another one of the kids born at our farm. So when you're doing breeding, conformation is super important. So part of breeding is picking your best animals and breeding those together, and then working on that. So that was one of the harder parts of farming, is you can't just keep everybody. You have to sell them or cull your herd in order to really develop your line. So as you can see, this is this girl was a beauty. And then the other breed that we are raising, because we don't have a lot of land, we didn't want to get into livestock that would need a ton of pasture, because we don't have a lot of pasture, and we don't want to hurt our pasture by putting too many animals on it. I'll talk about that later too. So that's why we decided to work on raising a smaller number of purebreds. And so we are also raising a breed called Golden Guernsey that is originally from the UK. And there's not very many of them in the US, but it's another wonderful dairy breed with just delicious milk, great temperament. And so we are doing what's called a breed up program. And with that, you take a foundation doe and a purebred buck, and you keep breeding them until you go through like 4 or 5 generations until you get to what's considered a purebred. Since you can't import live animals into the US as of right now, asterisk. So this is, I'm going to show you a little video. So this is our Golden Guernsey. You can see this is one of our does, and these were the first twins that she had this year. So we had 2 does that had twins this year. So we're super excited about this. We're still working on developing the conformation on this breed, but we think that they're going to be a great contributor to our business model, and they're great to have on the farm. They're just really, really great animals. The other animal that we have is sheep. This is a Scottish Blackface Ram. So again, Scottish Blackface is it's a dual breed for both meat and wool, and it's not super common here in the US. And we again are doing a breed up program for using the Scottish Blackface for another kind of rare breed here in the US. This was some of our lambs born this spring. So we are doing a breed up for what's called the Valet. So this is what a full purebred Valet looks like. Again, they are dual breed. They're desirable for their wool and also for their meat, and they're super docile. People have them as pasture pets and also for the wool. So this is a 3 to 4 year project in order to do the breed up program to work towards this purebred sheep. But I like the sheep. Rich is not as huge of a fan, but we enjoy having them, and the wool is excellent it's a coarser wool, but it's great for felting and for rugs. And then we've also done some processing of the lambs, which I'll talk about. So our other livestock that we have is what's called Idaho pasture pigs. And so Idaho pasture pigs is another, it's a newer cross. It's a cross between 3 different breeds, designed to be a pig that mostly grazes on grass. So the pork you get at the grocery store is primarily confinement raised. That means they're housed in a building. Most of their lives, they're raised almost exclusively on corn and soy. And so the quality and taste of the meat is going to reflect that. A pasture pig, there's two qualities. When you say pasture, it can be pasture raised, which means it's raised outside, but still raised entirely on corn. It's outside, but it's in a dry lot. And then it can be pasture raised and pasture fed. And that's what our pigs are. So they graze on grass 90% of the time, either grass or hay, and they get only 10% of their food. It comes from grain, and we use a non-GMO corn and soy. And so the quality of the meat, the taste of the meat is very different, as is the lives of the pigs. And one thing I hope you see as a theme in the way we pick and raise our animals is that we care a lot about their life, even though the purpose of them is for meat or for breeding. That does not take away from our care for them as living creatures. And I think that's something that people don't understand always, that how can you be a farmer that cares about animals if you're raising them for meat? But those two things are not in tension. You can very much care for your animals, treat them as living creatures, but still have that end goal and that purpose in mind. So for us, deciding to raise pork was a decision to find a pig that would have a high quality meat. The other thing, the other factor is the fact that they're outside moving around all the time. So that creates a lot more muscle in the meat versus fat. And that also contributes to the taste of the meat. So this is, we have 2 sows right now, and we're getting a 3rd sow. And pigs can have safely have 2 litters a year. They really can have almost 3 because their gestation is only 4 months. But we generally breed them twice a year, and they can have anywhere between 8 to 12 piglets. So we just had 2 of our sows farrow, and they each had 10 piglets. So we have 20 piglets running around right now, which is great, but it's a lot. So, and these Idaho pasture pigs are great moms. They do an excellent job caring for them. So after about 4 to 6 weeks, we wean them, we castrate them, and then the markets for these are we sell them as feeder pigs to families that want to raise a pig on their own. We sell breeding stock, and then we also sell half and wholes. Which means you purchase a half pig or a whole pig. And then we also sell retail cuts now. So the Michigan Department of Agriculture issues you a license that allows you to sell cuts at retail. The requirement is that you have your meat processed at a USDA processor. So we do that, and we sell them at the farmers market and through our CSA, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So we really like our pigs, and this is what our meat looks like. Our bacon is amazing. So in 2019, after buying the farm, we started to, like I said, transition it to our purposes. And so we took a half acre of pasture, and we started to get it developed for the market garden. And that's kind of, so this is the second leg of our business, which is the land. So we grow on a half acre, which doesn't sound like much, but by Michigan row crop standards, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And we do what's called market gardening. And so that term was developed to describe farmers who are not growing just for themselves at home or enough cucumbers to feed their neighbors, but also who aren't doing big, hundreds of acres, of row crops, which are soybeans, corn. But you're developing a garden that is designed to go to market. So, and that can be a lot of different market channels we're going to talk about. So it's a newer style of gardening that's gaining popularity here in the US. In Europe, that's how most it's very popular, but it has not been that case here in the US. And so but it's gaining popularity, especially as people want local food, because it allows you to grow enough to supply channels within your community, and also to develop a farm that doesn't require a ton of staff and a ton of large equipment. So your initial investment and development is a lot less. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and some of the aspects or characteristics of market gardening. This is our first year garden. So you can see we grow on 30-inch beds. So that's how the bed top looks. And we do what's called a permanent raised bed system. So our beds, we dig out the paths. And so that helps with the drainage, and using a consistent bed length and a consistent bed size means that all of our equipment can be used on various beds depending on what we're doing. So those are some of the characteristics. And then the other thing that's a characteristic of market gardening, because you're on a small amount of space, is doing intensive succession planting. So, when you get your seed packets and it says, okay, you need to plant this like 12 inches apart or 18 inches apart. Most of the time, that's not the case. You can plant things closer together. And what that does is it allows you to shade less weeds, and it does not hurt your production. So market gardeners tend to plant very intensively, and then we do a lot of succession planting. So I will plant a crop. Let's say I'm going to plant a lettuce crop. That might grow for 30 to 45 days. And then I pull that crop out, I harvest it, and now I'm going to flip that bed. That means I'm going to flip it. I'm going to compost it, amend it, and I'm going to get it ready for the next crop. So you're constantly flipping your beds and using them, especially with your short-term crops. So even though you only have a half acre, a lot of your beds are going through 3, 4, or 5 successions of different crops that you're then selling. So your ability to garner a lot of revenue off one bed, it goes up by quite a bit. So it's very different from most home gardeners, where you're planting one crop and that's it for the season. You're doing a lot of succession planting, and I can answer any questions about that if you have it. Okay, so then our last tenant, this is another picture of the garden. You can see that 30-inch bed with the raised permanent bed system. I'll talk a little bit more about the crops we raise or grow. So then the last leg of our business is learning. Like I said, when we were at Mayberry, we really fell in love with education and the idea of connecting people to where their food comes from, whether that's meat or vegetables and produce. And so we have started education. It has been limited. This is the one aspect of our business that's been very limited because of COVID. So we hope, and our plan is in 2022 is to do more of this. You can see this is us at the farmers market, and we brought some of our piglets and we had signage up. So this is an opportunity for some, what I would call inspiration. It's some limited interaction with animals that a lot of kids and families would not normally have. Teaching them about those things. And so, and then this was another activity we did at the farmers market where kids were able to harvest sunflower seeds from dried sunflower heads and then use those to make bird food or to roast for themselves or to plant in the spring. So, just these little interactions like this where kids are, this is my nephew helping me harvest zinnias. Just these interactions like this have so much impact on, I always say kids, but I think on adults as well. And I think one of the big mindset shifts for me was that, well, most people aren't going to be farmers, so it doesn't matter if they really interact with farms or understand where their food comes from. Most people are only going to be consumers. But when you look at where the power in what practices farmers are going to do comes from, it comes from the consumer. Because as the consumer, it's what I'm willing to pay for that will drive what a farmer's practices often will be. So our ability to help expose people to what it is that it takes to grow food or to raise food and what's required to do that in a humane way, which is what most people want, right? They want organic, healthy food, not raised with a lot of chemicals. They want animals that have been humanely raised. Showing them what's involved in that helps them to understand why, if you only want to pay $1.99 for a pound of chicken, then they're going to be raised this way. And if you're willing to pay $4.99 for a pound of chicken, then they can be raised this way, because that trickle down effect comes back to the farmer and what their inputs are going to be because of what their revenues can be. So we're really excited about having a place where we can allow those interactions to take place. And we're looking forward next year to doing farm camp, preschool programming, adult classes. And so if you haven't subscribed to our email through our website, we hope you'll do that. And then you'll be apprised of that stuff that's coming up. We're really looking forward to that. Something we've done, or we did, in our limited capacity during COVID was when COVID happened and so many kids were homeschooled, we decided to start doing farm school kind of on the fly. And we did a virtual farm school. We started out doing it 5 days a week. And we would just kind of come up with things to show and talk about. And we would do Facebook Live, or we would do it taped. So you can see some of them on our YouTube channel. And we just would teach kids about, what it is to, what do goats need to eat, and what's an electric fence, and how do you grow microgreens. And so it was a great experience, and we're hoping to maybe do that again in the winter months. And we also look forward to going into schools as well. We want to have programming at the farm, but we also are looking forward to going into schools to do programming. All right. So I'm talking a lot. I hope everyone's following me. I've been in so many Zooms, but I've never been the speaker. So it's interesting. You're hoping everybody is tracking with you. So I hope you are. If you're not, please feel free to give a shout in the chat. So I want to talk a little bit about how we farm. And, those of you who garden know that there's lots of different ways to farm, lots of different choices out there. And so we really want our farming practices to reflect our values and our mission. And so we've chosen to farm, first of all, organically. So we are not certified organic. That is something that it's a rather intensive process. It requires a lot of tracking and a fair amount of cost as well. We have, because we're so connected to the people we're selling to, and we're able to explain our growing practices to them, and we have a lot of transparency with people being able to come to the farm, we have not felt the need for that. if there comes a time when the market would demand that because of where we're selling to, then we would look into that. But right now, we follow organic or better than organic practices as described by, it's called, there's different, the USDA has developed organic standards that you have to follow in order to be considered organic. So we're aware of those and we follow those. We're also closely linked to the Michigan Produce Safety. They're actually producing a video using our farm about how we're building out our wash pack. So I've gone through produce safety training, which is really important because even though we don't process our food, our vegetables, there is still, it's really important how you handle your produce. Because it is out there in nature. So there are things pooping on it. That's what we say in farming. You say, don't pick poopy produce, which people don't like to think about, but you're outside. And those of you who garden know that's what happens. So how do you handle that produce in a way that makes sure that it's safe for your customers? And so, so we look at that as well. There are some things when you're an organic farmer, there's a lot of tools that are not available to you that would make farming easier. And so a lot of conventional chemicals and things that would knock down insects and weeds very easily. So you have to be more creative as an organic farmer. So I'm going to share a little bit about what some of our favorite tools are as organic farmers. One of them is tarps, and you may have used tarps before, or you may not have. So what tarps do is they cover the soil, which is a big key of organic farming, is you don't want to leave your soil bare. When you leave your soil bare, what you're doing is you're allowing wind and erosion to take away that really precious organic matter. And so you want to always keep it covered. So whether that's with tarp or with crops or with cover crops, which I'll talk about, you want your soil to be covered, or wood chips. So tarps, what they do is they allow your soil to be covered, and they create heat, which kills your the weeds beneath it or the plant residues, and that means that those become compost. There's ways to use tarps that allow you to help kill off the what's called the weed bed right underneath your soil, at the top of the soil. So we generally have tarped. Originally, when we tilled this field, we had to do some tilling. Our goal is to keep moving towards less and less tillage, which probably most of you know that the more you till, it looks so pretty when you till, but it actually disrupts so much of the biological activity that's going on in the soil. So as we develop the health of our soil, we want to keep tilling less and less. But after we did the initial till to get up all that pasture grass, we tarped the whole field. And when we brought it up in the spring, this is what it looked like. So over the winter, it had really allowed all that debris that we call them green manures. So it's like compost, but it's from plants, in order to had killed those off and allowed those to compost. So it's a great way to cover your soils, and you can tarp a small area, you can tarp a big area. So it's a great organic tool. This is a picture of our original tarp. I did not take a picture of the middle of winter when the tarps were being blown around by the winter wind and we were chasing them down in 0-degree temperatures. So that is the downside of tarping if you don't have enough sandbags. Another tool that we like to use is row cover. So insects are an ongoing issue. The first year I feel like I had a pass because the insects didn't know I had a garden, but now the sign is out by the road that we have a garden and they're all here. So one of the row covers we use, you can see in this picture, is called Protect Net. And it's a very fine mesh netting. that allows all the air and light to get through, but will protect you from even the smallest insects, which are usually thrips. And so it's an excellent tool. It really protects greens and other plants and brassicas that are really susceptible to a lot of insects. It is a huge help to them, especially if you get it on right away, and keep it covered throughout the whole life of the plant until you're ready to harvest. So that's another great feature for insect control. A favorite of ours for weed control is fabric. So landscape fabric is something that can be reused year after year. And this is a picture here of Rich burning holes. So we use a little propane tank and we pick spacing based on the plants that we want to plant in that fabric. And then we burn holes in it. So this was, I think this is like a 6-inch or 9-inch spacing. We burn the holes in it and then we staple it down. And so this means now for this bed, I'll put transplants in here. You don't usually direct seed into fabric, but you can. I'll put this was zinnias, put my zinnia transplants in here. And now I don't have to weed for the entire season. So it's a lot of work up front, but now I've saved myself from weeding this bed for the entire season. So, and it can also help with heating up the soil early in the season with the black fabric. Another tool is cover crop. So some of you, it's becoming very popular to use cover crop. It's not a cash crop. Most cover crops cannot be used for anything other than maybe animal forage. But cover crops are crops that are designed to replenish the health of the soil. So they usually fix nitrogen in the soil. And so every time you grow a plant in the soil, you have to think about the fact that you're taking out nutrients. Those plants are taking out nutrients. Now there's some things like legumes that will give back as well. But most plants, especially what we call heavy feeders, are going to take out nutrients. And so if you keep doing that continually without giving back to your soil, I talk to a lot of home gardeners and they're like, I just don't know, like these plants were doing fine. And now like 3 or 4 years later, I can't get anything to grow here. But there's no fertilizer, there's no rotation of the crop. So that soil is just, it's depleted. So what cover crops do is after I harvest, I might put in, this is called buckwheat. And it's a fast growing cover crop. And I would leave it in for maybe 30 to 40 days. And what it does is it's going to fix nitrogen into the soil and it's going to keep that soil covered like we talked about, which is super important. And then I'm going to be able to mow it down and then cover it with a tarp. So now I'm also going to have some green manure compost as well in the soil. So the downside for some people is that you have to have space to be able to take a bed out of rotation in order to do this. But in the long term, you are sustaining the life of your soil because you're giving back. So I'm taking out, but then I'm also giving back. So there's lots of different cover crops. We use buckwheat, winter rye, phacelia, sorghum grass, based on what your needs are. You can look up what the best cover crops are for you. Clover, there's lots of different ones. So if you've been home gardening in the same spot for a long time, I would encourage you to look into cover crops because your soil might just need some replenishment. And a cover crop could really give it that replenishment and rest that it needs. The other thing, I'll talk about this in a minute. We do a lot of composting, especially now early on. So we do compost ourselves, but I don't use our compost yet on our fields because I've heard too many horror stories about people who used compost that was not cooked enough. And then they added a whole bunch of weed seed to their gardens. So we buy in our compost, but every time I flip a bed, I put about 2 inches of compost down. And hopefully as the health of the soil gets better, we'll have to do that less. But good quality compost is super important for us. And then we also use fertilizer. The main fertilizer we use is an organic chicken manure that we get from Herbert's Poultry up in Saranac. And chicken manure is an excellent fertilizer. It's high in nitrogen, and ours has calcium added to it as well. So that is an excellent fertilizer to add, in between plantings as well. So another tool, this wasn't sure where to put this, but this is our growing room in the basement of our house. And so when we're doing seedlings, there's so many different names, seedlings, plugs, transplants. You need to do that in a space where you can control the humidity and the temperature. So this is a DIY germination chamber that Rich built. And so we seed our trays down here in the basement, and then we put them into this germination chamber. And as you can see, we cover each of the trays with plastic, and then at the bottom is a crock pot, and that provides both the heat and the humidity. And on the right, I have on the outside of the germination chamber, I have a thermostat, and that kicks the crock pot on and off based on the temperature that I have it set on. So these work amazing. They're great. My germination rates are excellent. They're usually in there half the time of what the seed packet will say it needs to be germinated at. And then once I'm done in there, we pull them out, and then we put them into the main part of the growing room. We hung Reflectix insulation. You can see that's the silver over there, draping. And then we have grow lights. We use the whole spectrum, white, cool to warm, which is what's necessary when you're doing, bigger transplants. You have to have that full spectrum of light. And so then we move them in here, and in the beginning of the season, this whole room was full of transplants, full. And so now it's getting empty now that the season's over, but we do succession planting. So that means I have transplants in the grow room all season long. So building this out was great. We also had a sink installed in that room as well, and that made a big difference. But having a good grow room can really increase your ability to capacity, and it can save you a lot of money. If you're out buying transplants all the time, building a little grow room to do your own transplants will save you a ton of money. And this is my niece and nephew in the front area where we do the potting. So we keep all of our trays and everything in there. So another way we farm is integrated. So because we are a diverse farm with livestock and crops, we try to have all of those things work together. And this is an ongoing process of the ways in which we can do that. But I wanted to share one way with you. And that is we use this chicken tractor. So Rich built a chicken tractor, and you can see we used an old hay wagon and built this frame on there. And then we put the chickens inside this chicken tractor, and we pull the chicken tractor around the pastures, and it gets moved every single day. And the chickens live in here, which means they don't live in my barn, which is great because they're smelly. And every day they come out and they follow the sheep and the goats. So they're eating the remnants of their waste, the nutrition that's left in their waste, and then they're leaving behind their waste. And the additions, the amendments that they bring to the pastures has just been incredible in regards to what it has done for the health of our pastures. This was in 2020 or 2020. And already just after a year and a half of having the chicken tractor on the pastures, we have seen such an increase in the fertility of the fields. It's been really, really incredible. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to integrate all of our animals and have a full loop. We also feed a lot of our produce to the pigs. So we don't waste that. And so they get what's left over. And like I said, we do compost. So we're working on continuing to find ways to integrate. Our other way we farm is sustainably. So we really try to farm in ways that help the health of the land and the animals and the plants. We do what's called rotational grazing. So I'll just highlight one way. So I'm going to just play this video. This is Rich talking about how we do rotational grazing.
So good morning, Cardinal Farms fans. So I did a video a few days ago of our lush pasture, and this is the exact same pasture. So the sheep and goats were on it for actually 2 days. There was so much good grass here. And then the chicken tractor has been here for a couple of days. I washed it out yesterday, so they're all happy about that. But this is what's left of what was here. If you remember, it was long and lush. It's been eaten down pretty well. And then the chickens have been here a couple days and they've added their waste material to it. So this will probably be the last time anybody's on this pasture for this year. But next year, this little corner will be even more lush than what it was, thanks to the action of the animals and the interaction with the chickens and the tractor and all that. So just wanted to give you a quickie update, and this is what's left, and we'll just keep moving. All right, off.
So you can see in the background there, that white fence. Rich is out there every morning in the season, moving that fence, and moves our animals around, the majority of our animals, onto new pasture. So, and then we leave the pasture that's been eaten down to rest and grow back. And so what that does is it forces the animals to eat all the grass, not just what we call in farming world, the ice cream grass, the stuff that they really like. And it also gives pastures rest. When people don't rest their pastures, you really hurt the soil. You hurt yourself as a farmer, but you also really hurt the land. And that's a whole nother topic, huge topic. But that's something that we do on our pastures. And already we've seen a huge bonus in advantage in that. So I want to talk about a couple tools that we, some of our favorite tools as market gardeners. This one is called the BCS two-wheel tractor. And I know we're used to seeing the big tractors here in Michigan, but this is called a two-wheel tractor. And as you can see, or a walk-behind tractor, this allows you to work on a 30-inch bed, but do a lot of the things that you would normally have to do by hand because a conventional tractor is too big. So it has a number of different attachments. It has a tiller and a harrow, and this is a flail mower. But what I can do with this as one person, it greatly increases my capacity, as opposed to what I would have to do if I didn't have it, or I couldn't use a big tractor out there. So these are really popular in Europe. And so this one's from Italy. There's only one company that makes it in the US. But these are a huge game changer for market gardeners. And we use ours all the time. It makes our work, it's at least 2 staff people. Another tool that we have and are getting another is a hoop house. Caterpillar tunnel hoop house. It's not a greenhouse because it doesn't have a heat source, but this is incredibly valuable for season extension and allowing us to start earlier and to grow later because of the way it retains the heat. And it also allows me to really manage the irrigation and pests because it's covered. So these are another pretty big game changer for people who are doing market gardening, and they range a lot in cost, but they're well worth it. Another tool that you don't see too much or I never saw at least until I started doing this type of farming, is called a broad fork. And because you want to do less tillage, it's hard sometimes to get the soil loosened up without doing tillage. That's why people want to till, because they want to loosen up their soil. So a broad fork is, see, it has big tines on it, and I actually put it in the ground and I stand on it and then lean it back. So what it does is it aerates the soil and creates space without turning the soil. So tillage turns your soil, and now all the biological activity at the bottom is on the top. But this, it lifts it, it creates air and space, but it doesn't move everything around. So this tool costs anywhere between $100 to $200, but it's a great home gardening tool that you can purchase and use, and it will help create, help aerate your soil without having to do tillage. I wanted to share a couple of our favorite crops. One of them is Salanova. So Salanova is Italian for, which I know from my Uncle Greg, who may be watching right now, who knows Italian. And he told me that it means little salad. And this is a miniature full-size lettuce variety that we grow and is super, super popular at the market because it's super tasty, and it lasts for 3 weeks in the refrigerator, as opposed to the spring mix that you buy at the grocery store that wilts on the way home, especially the red lettuce. So we grow this for 3 weeks in the grow room as a transplant, and then we plant it out. And it takes 4 weeks to grow in the field, and then we harvest it. We have a 2-week harvest window. So it's called Salanova. Johnny's Selected Seeds sells it. It's a great lettuce to try at home if you're looking to try a lettuce for your home mixes. That's what the name looks like. We also use it to sell one of our premium products, which is a Salanova with microgreens and edible flowers called Blooms and Greens, which is super tasty and beautiful. Another crop that I've really enjoyed growing is ginger. So ginger takes a long time to grow. We actually get the seed stock from Hawaii in February, and then we start it indoors in March. And then you plant it out in maybe, April, once all the danger of frost has passed, because it's a tropical plant. And then you don't actually harvest it till September, October. And we harvest ours as baby ginger. So you can see how it doesn't have that brown papery skin on it. That's because we're harvesting it fresh, and that means you can still use the stalk for soups and teas, and the ginger is much more mild. It's delicious. So this is another crop that you can try. It is, it's so good, and it freezes. You can freeze it for up to a year if you're not going to use it right away. You can just take that rhizome and put it in the freezer. We love tomatoes. I love growing tomatoes. It's so much work, but they're so delicious. And it's the end of tomato season, which is making us pretty sad right now. So heirloom tomatoes are one of our specialties, and they're so hard to find because grocery stores don't want to carry them because they look ugly. So consumers don't want to buy them until they've tasted them. So we grow heirloom tomatoes. We grow a wide variety of cherry tomatoes. I do those all in the hoop house because then we can control the way that we're growing them. And we trellis them. And so we can get a lot of production off the tomatoes that we grow. Oh, this is the one thing I don't like about tomatoes. If you grow tomatoes, the way they make your hands so black. So this is what happens if I pick tomatoes without gloves on. Eggplant, we grew eggplant this year. That's another favorite, super prolific. I couldn't believe how much eggplant comes from just a couple plants. Garlic, super easy to grow, and local cured garlic is so delicious. And if you grow a hardneck variety of garlic, you can get that garlic scape, which is another treat, and it will last 3 to 4 months cured on your counter. So it's a long-term crop, and even longer if you keep it like in the dark, you know, in a cool area, you might be able to extend that up to 6 months. So this is our garlic curing, and a rare moment when one of our sheep escaped. We usually make sure the animals are nowhere near the food. And there we are after we've done all the work. Carrots is another one. We grow Mokum carrots. That's the variety we grow, and super tasty, super sweet. And then microgreens. If you've never tried microgreens, they're super easy to grow. They're very nutritious. They only take 5 to 8 days to grow out, so super fast, and really wonderful on pretty much everything: salads, sandwiches, you know, all sorts of different dishes, and very, very flavorful. This is what's called confetti radish microgreens. So, and lastly, sorry, this is, thought I didn't know I had quite so much material, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about our market channels. So we right now, where we're selling our products is at the, oh, sorry, these are habanadas. This is a heatless hot pepper, which is another one of our specialties. Cabbage, purple potatoes. I guess I like growing a lot of things. Zinnias, these are some of our flowers that we grow. Sunflowers, celosia coxcomb, and dahlias. So we also do quite a few cut flowers. So we sell our products right now through a few different market channels. The first is what's called a CSA. If you're not familiar, that's community supported agriculture. And it's a model where people subscribe, they become members, and you pick up a box of food every week, or ours is every other week, either on farm or at a pickup location. And so we call our CSA the local food club, and people subscribe for, it's a 8 share, you get 8 different shares, you pick up every other week. And we do pick up at the farm. So we love that because people get to pick up at the farm, and they also get to explore the farm every time they come. So they get to see the animals and the gardens and kind of watch it change over the season. So people come and we put their box together while they're there. So we explain everything that goes into the share and how to use it. So and then we also sell add-ons. So if we have things that aren't in their share, but you know they might want, they can purchase those when they come for pickup. And so we get lots of families coming out. Right now we have 50 families in our CSA, and we're planning to expand that next year. So we love seeing the kids eat fresh produce, and they're always coming saying, "We love your carrots, we love your tomatoes." So that's one of the super exciting parts for us, is seeing kids enjoying vegetables. My mom will tell you I didn't eat vegetables till I was about 40 years old. So my family thinks it's pretty hilarious that I'm a vegetable farmer. So I really love the idea of connecting kids when they're young to that. So here's one of the families in our local food club who comes out every time. And then they always send me all these pictures of their kids eating vegetables. So I love seeing that. We also are at the South Lyon Farmers Market. We started that last year, and we were there longer this year. So we sell all of our produce, our pork, and our flowers. We bought this bus in 2019. It was used, and we had it branded to use at the farmers market, and also when we go to schools to do programming in the future. So we love the bus. It's a great traveling advertisement for the farm. So there's just some shots of us at the market. It's a great way to connect the community. to connect to the community, being at the farmers market. So I want to encourage you to go to the South Lyon Farmers Market. Try to visit and really encourage them to keep getting more farmers. We have a lot of artisans, which is great, but if we want to grow the market, we have to have more farmers there. So people will come every week to visit the market. So we also sell at Greener Pastures Market. If you're not familiar, this is such a gift to our community because they sell local produce, local meats, and mostly organic products. So we sell some of our products there, and we sold transplants there in the spring. So those are our market channels right now. And as we look to the future, we know that we're going to look maybe at some restaurants, some local florists for some of our flowers. And we just look to do more of what we're doing, all the while keeping our priorities in line. And Rich is good with that because I can be too big with too many ideas, and he's usually good at restraining us. So yeah. So sorry, I hope I didn't go on too long, but I hope that gave you an overview of our farm and what our vision is and what we're doing. And I'd love to answer any questions. So if you have questions that aren't in the chat, feel free to throw those in there. If you have to take off, thank you for joining us. Someone said, can you explain what a wash pack is? So yeah, when you harvest your produce, you have to do what's called post-harvest handling. So most produce needs to be washed and packaged. And there are all sorts of different procedures based on the produce about what temperature it should be at, how quickly it should be cooled down, whether or not it should have what's called Sanidate applied to it in order to kill off any pathogens. So your wash pack is your area where you have all of your wash tubs, your spinner to spin your greens, where you have your cooler. So, and then all of your packaging materials. So some people's wash pack is a picnic table outside, and then other people have a state-of-the-art facility. So right now we use our house garage. We have set that up as our wash pack. And it works pretty well, but it's small. We have a couple of commercial coolers in there and a couple freezers that we use for the pork. But in the future, we're working to take our back barn and to put a concrete floor in so that it drains really well, and to put in all these different elements, including a walk-in cooler, in order to be able to increase our capacity. To do that. So yeah, so that's what you call a wash pack. Somebody else said, I see that you allow your baby goats to stay with their moms instead of putting them on the bottle. Yeah, that's a choice we make. Certainly some people choose to bottle feed. And one of the reasons is because there are certain diseases that if the mom has it, they can pass it to the babies. So people who are raising breeding stock, that's a concern for them. Also, if you show goats, nursing can affect the quality of the udder and the teats. So, but for us, I feel like I'm a pretty good farmer. Like I do the castrations, and I know we have to put animals down, but I really haven't found a good reason yet to separate the moms from the babies. And I feel like it's best for the babies. And I really, after all that work of being pregnant and birthing them, I love to see them be together for as long as they can and get that colostrum and have that bonding. I think it's the healthiest thing. And plus they learn a lot from their parents. They learn how to be goats or sheep. So yeah, we do that until weaning, which is different. You know, some of them it's three months and some it's a little bit longer. So, somebody asked, do you sell your wool? Yes, we actually will be selling our wool. it's being processed. This year's wool, we get our sheep sheared in March, right before they lamb. And so it's being processed right now at Hoof to Hanger, which is a couple hours away, but they found that our wool was super dirty. So it's been taking a lot longer than we planned. And so I'm hoping to have some soon and be able to sell it for at the farmer's market. But if not, we will probably be selling it online for Christmas. So we're going to have roving wool and yarn and another type of wool, another way it's processed to use for rugs. I can't think of the name of it right now, but yeah, so we're looking to use that. It's not a fine wool like merino wool. But we are having it mixed with other wools at the plant, so you'll be able to use it for clothes if you're a knitter and you want to knit with it. So,
All right. I guess I don't see any more questions in the chat. Cindy would really want to thank you. Your pictures are awesome. It makes me want to come and visit your farm next summer.
yes, please.
And so everybody, please visit them at the South Lyon Farmers Market or Breeder Pastures, where they carry their items. And of course, look into the CSA if you're interested in a box of fresh vegetables every week during the summer.
Yes. We start, if you, our website is cardinal-farms.com, and you can subscribe to our email list, and the email list is the first to hear about the local food club. I see a couple local food club members on, so they can vouch for whether it was a good experience. And but you'll be able to hear what's going on at the farm. And then also, thank you. Yeah, the web address is in the chat there. Whether or not, the things that we have coming up for next year.
Yeah, well, keep us posted and sign up for their newsletter. I just got mine, I think today in my mailbox. So, and that'll keep you posted on what's going on at Cardinal Farms. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, if you're still on real quick, somebody wanted you did say where you were located at 8 Mile and
8 Mile and Pontiac Trail. Yeah.
the general area. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not open to the public, but we will have next season, we will have farm days where we will be open to the public, where you could come by and visit the farm. We just haven't had a chance to have those yet because of COVID and everything. But yeah, we want to provide opportunity for people to come and visit. Or if you're in the local food club, you can come every other week.
Oh, and you never want to just drop by any farm or operation without calling first. But definitely sign up for the newsletter, and then
you can, but we might put you to work. That's the problem.
That's true. You might get a fork and start cleaning the stalls out or something.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us tonight, everybody. And thanks a lot, Cindy. That was really fun.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.